Hi, I'm Preston Williams, and welcome to another edition of Jazz Talk. Today on our show, we have with us a very special guest. He has been on the scene for over 30 years and has worked with many greats from Chick Corea, Dave Matthews Band, Prince, and Bella Fleck and the Flecktones, to name a few. He is a Grammy award-winning bassist, composer, educator, and record producer. Please welcome to Jazz Talk, Mr. Victor Wooten. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, Mr. Williams. Thanks for having me on your show.
Oh, it's an honor. It's an honor. You know, Victor, as I said, you've been on the scene, man, for quite a while. Most of us know that you're an incredible bass player. They've actually used the analogy, he's the Michael Jordan of the bass, which I agree. And but I understand you are from a place that I've never heard before, Mountain Home, Idaho.
Yeah, I'd never heard of either, but my, my dad was in the Air Force. So, and I'm the youngest of five boys. So once we were born, we moved around a lot. So since I'm the youngest, of course, my brothers moved around more than me.
Yeah.
But apparently, we were stationed in Idaho for a while,
Mhm.
and I literally know. I know very little about Mountain Home. I think we were there maybe a year.
A year.
So I probably wasn't even a year old when we left and moved to Hawaii,
Wow.
right? So I can remember starting to play music in Hawaii at, I'm like 2, 3 years old in Hawaii.
Hmm.
When our brothers, we started playing as a five piece, but I never even went to school in Hawaii. We moved to
Incredible.
I'm sorry, we moved to California where I started playing school, started going to school, and that's when us brothers started playing music out. But I was still very, very young. But Mountain
Incredible.
Home, Idaho, it's right outside of Boise, the capital.
But right outside of Boise. You know, it's interesting. Now, I understand that your older brother, Reggie, was instrumental in getting you started on bass. And you started at age 2, and by the time you were 5 or 6, you were playing gigs. That's incredible.
Yeah, we were playing gigs before that actually, but you know, I look back on it now and realize how incredible that was.
Yes.
But get this right though, the incredible part came from Reggie, not me.
Ah,
Okay, not me. Anybody born in my position would be as good, if not better, than me. Because I never liked to practice. We had to do it, but kids don't want to practice. Kids want to play,
exactly.
right?
Exactly.
So, but think about this now. I'm 2, and I say 2 because that's kind of believable, right? You don't start learning to talk until you're 2.
Exactly.
You're learning to talk all along, right? From birth, you're figuring it out. It may
Right.
be wrong, but it's really more right than it is wrong. The only part that's wrong when you're learning to talk are the words.
Yeah.
The emotion is right,
Hmm.
right? The tone. If you're upset, if the baby's upset, it's not a nice goo goo gaga tone, right? So everything is so right except the word. It's so right that your parents learn your language, right? Your mom knew every sound you made,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And no one ever taught you to talk, right? They just provided you an example and let you jam with them, right?
Yes.
Right? The babies weren't only jamming with other babies. That's what we do in music, and we wonder
Hmm.
why it takes so long. We got
Right.
beginners learning with beginners,
That's right.
but when you learn to talk, you jammed with the best,
Yeah. And you,
and
like I
no
said,
one
that's
ever corrected you. No one
that,
ever taught you, made you practice.
man.
So check it out, man. This is how I learned to play.
You know, Victor, coming from a family, you know, you're the youngest of 5 brothers. I mean, I guess music was sort of a natural thing for you. You know, if everybody's playing music, it's inevitable. Victor's going to play too. So,
Absolutely. They
but
knew before me
why do you think Reggie chose the bass for you?
because that's what was left. I really don't know, but Reggie, for whatever reason, gravitated towards the guitar, and it could be because in Hawaii they taught ukulele in school.
Yeah,
From what I hear Roy, who's the drummer, they just said Reggie was a natural,
yeah,
right? And so Reggie had gravitated towards the guitar, Roy drums, Rudy saxophone. So Reggie, Roy, and Rudy they're only like a year apart from each other. Only 2 years separate the three.
right.
So Reggie and Roy are even less than a year apart from each other. 13 months later, there's Rudy. So they started music at the same time.
Yeah,
So think about this now, because here's the real gift. Here's the real story. I get the credit, but here's the real, the person deserving the credit is Reggie. If I'm 2 years old, Reggie's only 10. Okay. My oldest brother's only 8 years older than me.
Mm-hmm.
So Reggie's teaching me at 2 to play bass. He's also teaching Joseph, who is 5, to play keys. Right. So if I'm 2, yeah, Reggie's 5. Okay, no, Reggie's 10. Okay. So Reggie's only 5 years older than Joseph. He's
Mm-hmm.
teaching Joseph keys, teaching me bass. Now, a few short years later, when I'm 5, close to 6, we're on tour. Now we're living in California. We're on tour opening for Curtis Mayfield on the West Coast during his Superfly tour.
Unbelievable.
Right? It is unbelievable. But what's really unbelievable is Reggie.
Yeah. Yeah.
I tell this story and people say, "Oh, you were 2. How did you hold the bass?" Blah, blah, blah. That's not the story. The story, how many 10-year-olds do you know that can get their 5-year-old brother and 2-year-old brother good enough to be on a national tour that quickly?
And he's just 10 years old. That's
He's only
incredible.
10.
Yeah.
Not only who can do it, who has the patience to do it.
Right.
That's the real story. So for me, like you said, it was natural. The same way learning English was natural for you.
Mm-hmm.
Learning
Mm-hmm.
music was the same way. I was literally, this will sound crazy, but I was literally learning music and English at the same time and in the same way by jamming
Wow.
and
Incredible.
not being overcorrected.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Victor, I wanted to ask you, what was your parents' perception of what you guys were doing at such a young age? I mean, like you said, playing with someone like Curtis Mayfield, I'm sure they're looking like, boy, our sons are very talented at such a young age, because I've never heard of anything like that before, you know?
Well, our parents didn't really care about talent. Their thing was, as much as they do it, of course they can play. They do it all the time.
Right,
That's
right.
all it takes. Just do it all the time. They were concerned with who we were as people. Their job was to turn us into good people,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that regardless of what we did, we would do it for the right reasons, which would bring about the right results.
yeah.
That was number one. Because for my brothers, it could have been sports, it could have been anything. And at one, they were really good at sports.
Mm-hmm,
We were really good at sports and music. And at one point, mom made us choose, or made my older brothers choose,
mm-hmm.
because come Friday night during high school, that's football game time.
Right.
Many Friday nights is gig time. The gigs made money, so we're going to the gig. But 3 of their main players all of a sudden gone. Reggie, Roy, and Rudy gone from the football team. Mom said, "Okay, you're starting to hurt the team now. We got to make a decision." You know?
Mm-hmm.
And my brothers chose music. Reggie was very smart. He knew as a kid that there is no uh like window of time. Where in sports you play football, you got a short window of time where you get to play.
Right. Yeah.
He said, "No age for music. Let's do music." Right. And of course, me just being the youngest, I just wanted to do whatever my big brothers did. And
Following
they
them.
allowed me. They allowed me in, right?
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
So, like I said, you're playing all throughout school. And I understand, I guess, what in the 80s, I understand that you guys performed at Busch Gardens at a country music venue. Tell me about that,
Sure.
man.
Well, I'll make the story as quicker than it really is. And through our connection with Stephanie Mills.
Oh,
Okay. Well, the bigger story, even though I'm gonna keep it short, we've had a lot of almost. We're gonna discover the Wooten brothers, starting back when I was 5 with Curtis Mayfield.
yeah.
Curtis Mayfield loved the Wooten brothers, so he was going to discover the Wooten brothers, just like the Jackson 5 were discovered. Right?
Mm-hmm.
We were literally in the studio recording. Had studio musicians helping us out, and I can remember just a little bit of it. I was maybe 5 or 6, and they wanted to get this particular new sound that had come out on a keyboard. They wanted to get it on our record before. All of a sudden, boom, gone, canceled, nothing happening. Nope.
Hmm.
And I found out later when we were living in Virginia, and I was either late teens or early 20s. I found out that somebody said, "Hey, there's already a group of 5 boys, 5 brothers in California. We don't need another one." and that was a Jackson 5. So the Jackson 5 were already starting to hit it in the, late 60s, early 70s. And so our five brother thing in California got pushed aside. So there's so many of those. I could tell you a bunch of those stories. Then we moved to Virginia, another story. Don Kirshner. We used to have Don Kirshner's
Oh,
rock.
Don Kirshner rock concert?
Don
Oh, wow.
Kirshner sent people to our house, And another cool story is a guy just showed up. He showed up online and said, "Hey, Don Kirshner sent me to your house. I still have the demo tape your mom gave me." I was like, "Whoa, I got to be real nice to this dude because it's the only copy I know of."
Right.
Anyway, I got the copy from it, got to hear it. Incredible music from us brothers, five of us. So anyway, we go on. We finally get to hook up with Stephanie Mills. Stephanie Mills is now going to be the Diana Ross or who? No, who? Yeah. So but she's going to discover the Wooten brothers now. Diana Ross had a keyboard player named Kashif. I'm sorry, let me slow down. Stephanie Mills, who was hitting hard in the '80s, late '70s, '80s, after her big success on Broadway. A lot of hits. So she's touring. We opened some shows for Stephanie Mills in Virginia. We're opening shows for any big artist that came through the five brothers, Wooten brothers. So she falls in love with us. She's going to discover the Wooten brothers. There's a keyboard player named Kashif that's working with Stephanie Mills. Kashif says, "Hey, I'm working on a big production deal with a big record label. If it happens, I want to record you guys." So the whole thing with Stephanie doesn't happen. A few years later, we get a call from Kashif. "Hey, I want to, I want to do some stuff with you guys now." Kashif's been, recording and producing all these pop hits. He created the whole sound, So cool. So now we got a record deal with Arista Records. Kashif's producing us. He's producing Kenny G and this beautiful model who's supposedly can sing real good. Her name is Whitney Houston.
Mm-hmm.
So Roy and Joseph, my brothers, are on Whitney Houston's first record. Right? But anyway, to make the story a little shorter, that deal goes nowhere.
Oh, man.
At least our deal. Of course, Kenny's and Stephanie's did. Ours didn't. But through it all, it wound up with the five of us brothers not playing together for the first time in our lives. Because when Kashif would go out on tour, he would take Roy and Joseph with him on drums and keys. And that happened for a few years. So the other three of us are at home figuring out other things to do. So I'm still a teenager. I graduated high school in '82, and this is all around '80, '81. All I know is music, and I don't have my brothers to play with. I can't even remember if I could even drive. So what do? I found out one of my brothers had gotten a gig at the amusement park through another friend. "Hey, why don't you play music here?" Got a gig. Then I found out they needed a bluegrass fiddle player for the country show. And at 15, I was technically too young to be in what they call their live entertainment department.
Right.
But they got desperate. So I borrowed a violin from high school, learned a few fiddle tunes, just enough to win the audition.
Wow.
And I became a bluegrass fiddle player at Busch Gardens.
That's incredible, man.
Came and found out all of a sudden and my brother Reggie, first they needed a bass player. And I was too young. So Reggie played bass in the country show. Then come to find out they needed a fiddle player. So I started playing fiddle in the country show. Come and find out they needed a steel guitar player. Reggie said, "Well, I really play guitar. I bet I could play steel guitar." And my brother, who you hired on fiddle, he's really a bass player. Let me go to steel guitar. Put him on bass. So I ended up playing bass and fiddle. Reggie played regular guitar and steel guitar, And so we did that for a few years on and off while our record deal was still happening sometimes, not happening other times. Whenever Kashif was off the road, we'd go up to New York and record.
Right.
And then, basically the deal really never came through. A record did come out, but, nothing happened with it. But, life always knows better than we know.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what life was pointing me towards. And right now, me because of the work I've done with a banjo player.
Oh, yeah.
And that came through my work at Busch Gardens.
So Victor, what happened? I guess the friends that you made there through that gig, that led you to meet Bella.
as well as living here in Nashville, Tennessee. Yes,
Wow. Wow.
absolutely. And my wife, I met her in '87, my last year working at Busch Gardens, which happened to be her first and only year. We were in a show together. Yeah, the people at Busch Gardens asked me, they said, "You've been here for a while, you've been doing a country show. We're going to do a new show. You want to try it? You want to play bass for it?" And I thought, well, let me try something different. And also my wife was in that. Well, she's my wife now, but we hit it off,
Yeah.
kept in touch. You know, after that summer, she went to college. I visited her a few times. Now we've been married almost 26 years.
That's beautiful, man. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. So you hook up with Bella Fleck. And I remember when I first started hearing about this group, late 80s, early 90s, and I'm like, man, who is this bass player? Because, of course, I came up Larry Graham, Bootsy, Jocko, Stanley, Marcus, and I'm like, man, who is this new bass player? I'd never heard, Victor Wooten. And then just the word got around, man. And like a lot of those incredible recordings that you guys made were something else. But yeah, how did you get to work with Chick Corea?
Yeah, well, all those guys that you just mentioned, Chick, Stanley, Marcus, their ears and their eyes are open.
Yeah.
If a new player shows up, they know about it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Chick saying, "Hey man, listen to this." I can't remember if it was a cassette or a CD. "Hey, listen to this new bass player I got." It was a new young guy named Hadrian Farreau from France. I was like, wow. So they're in tune. I mean, the fact that Chick found Stanley, and Stanley was a teenager. They're
Mm-hmm.
looking at this young spirit. Young people have fire.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we're not totally just playing by the rules. And so and plus with Stanley, I met Stanley with my brothers when I was 9. We went to a Return to Forever concert.
Oh, wow.
Hampton Institute. It's Hampton University now in Hampton, Virginia. And us 5 boys stuck around once the show was over. We just didn't leave. And so we were eventually invited into the dressing room.
That's incredible, man.
And Stanley never forgot that. So when he first started hearing about me, he knew who I was. He's like, "I remember that kid." So anyway, I became friends with Stanley. Bela became friends with Chick Corea. And so I got to meet Chick quite a few times. Also, when I did my first solo record, A Show of Hands.
Yes.
Chick was one of the people I was able to get a cassette to because I was looking for a label. Did anyone want to put it out? And at the time, Chick had his label, Mad Hatter, and he almost put it out. He almost put it out. But eventually, when John Patitucci couldn't do a electric band gig, Chick called me and asked me if I would do it. And I did it. Yeah. And I think he was happy with that. So I got to do that quite a few times.
That's amazing, man. The people that you were involved with. I mean, Chick Corea, that'd be a dream, to play with him, any bass player. Yeah. Now, as I said, you work with various artists. What was it like working with Prince, man?
Prince, yeah, and Prince is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And the thing, I'm not even quite sure where the he worked with Prince thing came from. It may have gotten put on my resume or something somewhere. But here's what I did do with Prince. Prince would come and see me play with my own band. If he was in town and I was playing somewhere, likely Prince was there, and I got to meet him quite a few times.
Right.
We got a phone call from Prince. Prince, being Jehovah's Witness, didn't celebrate birthdays, but he had a week-long celebration during the week of his birthday, every June or July, I can't remember, at Paisley Park.
Right.
And so I was asked to bring my band and play one of the nights. And so we did. So we got to hang out with, Prince at Paisley Park. He gave us a tour of the place. Not long after that, Prince came to Nashville to do a concert at the big arena. I got called by somebody, probably Takumi, who was Prince's right-hand guy at the time, handled all his guitars and stuff. And I got invited to the show. I went to the show, watched the show. I got invited right after to go to some hangout where they were going to play again. Prince would do that. So there we got to play and jam together. Larry Graham was there. As far as playing with Prince, that was it. A jam at an after thing, right? I did get 2 phone calls from Prince where he was telling me, he said, "I'm putting together an all-star band." And he asked me if I would play bass. I said, "Well, yeah, if you get it together, let me know." I was still a little reluctant,
Yeah.
having heard some things about working with Prince and the demands. Plus, working with Prince mean not working with Bela Fleck. Didn't know if I was prepared to do that to the band. But I got 2 phone calls. It never happened. But the only thing I remember hearing is that I think it was Rochelle Farrell.
Yeah, the singer. Yeah.
She was going to be a part of it. If I remember the name correct, it was going to be her, me, and I don't know who else. But it never happened. But that's the extent of my working with Prince.
You got a chance to jam with him. What was
Yeah.
it like working with Dave Matthews, Victor?
Lots of fun, not only because they're amazing musicians, but because they're from Virginia. I'm from Virginia, and we
Uh-huh.
knew a lot of this people. Most of his band I knew growing up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Carter Beauford, Tim Reynolds, the guitar player, they're all in a
Mm-hmm.
band together. Dave used to use this keyboard player named Butch Taylor. They were all in this fusion band together. We all knew each other. I didn't know Dave.
Yeah.
I don't know how much music he was doing. I do know he was bartending. I remember when Carter was questioning whether to keep doing his BET gig or to commit to this new songwriter guy.
Mm-hmm.
And and so we remember when Dave Matthews first hit, and they were playing bars and sticky floor bars. The Flecktones at that time, early '90s, mid '90s, we were working our way up into now nice theaters,
Mm-hmm.
1,000 seaters, 2,000 seaters. And I remember one night we're in some city, we finish our show, we done by 10, 8 to 10 or whatever. Dave Matthews Band, they're playing at the bar, so we go see them, and it's a bar. Seemed like a few months later, they're at the arena, they're at the theaters, big videos on MTV. And so the biggest thing about playing with them, I love their music, but
Mm.
I love them.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just love the fact that people from hometown, they did it. And they did it in their own way. Their band's not pop.
Right. Right.
I mean, they got a fiddle. They used to have a fiddle player. They got like Billy Cobham on the drums, Carter,
Right. Right.
good solid bass player. Dave is like almost like Forrest Gump kind of on guitar. He's quirky, but in
Right.
the coolest way. Not weird, but his own way of singing. And they do stuff in odd time meters. It's like it, almost like it. This could have been in the '70s
Yeah.
when pop music just meant popular.
Right.
And pop
Right.
music played all this stuff, LEO, Electric Light Orchestra, ELO, all odd meters and violin. And, pop music was cool back then. But in the '90s,
Right.
when
Right.
pop music is turning into keyboard, bass, and 4 chords, how did Dave Matthews slip through there? But man, it just made us so happy. So every time I get to see them or hear anything about them, my heart sings because I just love those guys. And I love the fact that they made it through the cracks, with a blend of jazz and fusion
Yeah.
and funk and pop. It's all there. And I love the fact that millions of people will show up to see them.
Most definitely. Yeah. They have a cult following now, and I believe in 2000, Victor, you created this camp. Tell us about that, man. Incredible. I mean, I'm sure you guys do things there all the time, for bass players. But tell us a little bit about the camp. Why you created it. What's happening with it.
Sure. Well, I wanted people to have what I had growing up. As the Flecktones started to become popular, I started to become popular.
Yeah.
With my growth in popularity, I started being asked to teach. And as I started researching how to teach, because again, I never taught anything,
Hmm.
I realized that the way people were teaching and what they were teaching was good, but I felt too much of the important stuff was being left out.
Right.
And I realized I didn't learn that way. No one told me to go learn the rules first and play later.
Mm.
No one made me sit in a room and practice all these hours. What? I didn't learn to talk like that. So I started doing workshops and teaching based upon how I was taught.
Ah,
right?
okay.
Which is basically Reggie recognizes, he assesses and recognizes your gifts right away. And that's where he starts.
Interesting.
Whatever you can do. That's how a parent teaches you to talk. Whatever sound you make, I'm gonna learn what that means, and we start there.
Yeah.
Reggie does that. Reggie says sometimes it's just hard to get a young student to even touch the instrument. Sometimes they're that,
Mm,
you know, if and if they're young enough, they're free in their play. But when they've grown enough to be a little afraid of what you think, he just has to get them to touch the instrument. Well, can you touch it? Can you make a sound? And from there, he takes it, right? So basically, with the camp, I wanted people to get what I got growing up, not only musically, but from my parents about being
mm,
a good person. You want to be famous? Why? What are you doing that the world needs to know about? What are you doing that's worth me knowing about?
yeah.
Who doesn't have talent? Everybody's got talent.
Right.
And you
Right.
can fake talent just by doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
You know, that doesn't impress me. But why, you know? So in 2000, well, I had been doing a lot of workshops around the country.
Hmm.
And a friend of mine, a violin player named Mark O'Connor, was doing a thing called a fiddle camp. He was
Hmm.
taking violin players and they'd sit around under trees and had all these instructors and people over here and over there. And I would visit his camps and get to play with the students. And I'm like, man, I want to do this. And then I had also taken a bunch of outdoor classes with a naturalist named Tom Brown Jr. And I
Mm.
was learning how to literally like live off the land, how to make fires with sticks, how to you know what plants we can eat, how to make tea out of dandelions and all this stuff. Basically, it's the stuff your ancestors knew and art, so did mine, or else we wouldn't be here.
That's right. That's right.
But it's the stuff none of us know anymore. Hard to find a kid that knows that unless they've come through one of these schools. So I started learning, and I was like, man, this is the way music should be taught.
Hmm.
Sit in a room and practice one thing over and over. No, let's get out and do it. And so I took his idea, Tom Brown, the naturalist, his idea, Mark O'Connor, the fiddle player. I put them ideas together and started the bass camp.
Yeah.
And for the first 7 years, I rented the exact same place that Mark O'Connor was using. And we did camps only for bass players. And then my wife and I bought some property, 150 acres on a river just outside of Nashville, Tennessee. And with the help of our 7 years of camp students, we built a new place that we call Wooten Woods.
Wooden Woods. Yeah.
And now we do camps for any instruments and a lot of different topics.
That's
And
beautiful.
we just completed, well, we're in our 21st year right now. Yeah.
Congratulations, Victor. That's amazing. That's amazing. I wanted to ask you about your friend, Steve Bailey. Great guy, good bass player. I know you guys work together a lot, and both of you guys are educators. You do some stuff together at Berkeley sometimes, and you
Yeah.
guys teach together.
Right.
Now, yesterday, I believe, didn't you guys have some type of seminar or workshop or something online that I believe John Patitucci, some
Sure.
others hosted?
Absolutely.
And tell us about that, man. Yeah, I saw that being
Sure.
advertised, and it was a bunch of bass players on it. I think I even saw Anthony Jackson's name. I'm like, wow.
He was there. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Steve, it was his idea. We've been doing these webinars together since about mid-March,
Yeah.
almost every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern. So I tell everyone to look for it. Look on my website, my Instagram, Facebook, or the Berkeley Bass Department Facebook group. If you go there, if we're doing it, it's plastered there. But what we've been doing, well, first of all, Steve and I met in the early 90s when we were both endorsing this speaker company. And Steve's a different kind of guy. You know,
Yeah.
not everybody likes him. Um, for one, he's very confident. He knows who he is, and sometimes that can rub people wrong. He's
Mm.
not afraid to tell you what he thinks.
Right.
He likes to win. Um, and I'm kind of the opposite. I want you to win. If I win, I want you to think you won, you know?
Yeah.
So we are yin yang, Steve and I, of each other, but we complement each other
Yeah.
so well. And we have since the 90s. Steve, I don't know anyone's brain that's works the way his does. He's just a smart, outside of the box thinker.
Yeah.
So as soon as COVID hit, he left Boston, went back home to Myrtle Beach to be alone because he was feeling a little sick and he didn't want to infect anyone. But in being totally isolated, literally by himself for quite a few weeks. Like I'm home too, I'm loving it, but I got my family. He was
Right.
by himself, hadn't spoken face to face with a person in weeks. He got the idea of bringing bass players together through Zoom. Because
Mm.
we had been teaching on Zoom through Berkeley, and we realized how it works. So I can't remember what the first webinar was, but we just brought bass players together, and he was able to use the Zoom's webinar feature where hundreds of people or thousands can come and watch. And it went so well. Steve loved the community and the camaraderie. He started doing it. He was like, I want to do this next week.
Mm.
So it's been going on almost every week since mid-March. So yesterday, the top, and everyone has a different topic.
Mm.
So yesterday was the evolution of the six-string bass, which is a Anthony Jackson.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
The one. So we had a lot of people who are known for playing six-string bass, John Patitucci being one.
Mm-hmm.
John Patitucci also teaches at Berkeley. So Steve, John, and I are all a lot of the times together.
Yeah.
Well, we had a bass player named John Myung was there. Alain Caron from Canada was there. Of course, Anthony Jackson was there. Um, I know I'm leaving out other people, and I'm sorry, but a bunch of people were there. But then we had builders come in,
Really.
like Ken Smith made Anthony Jackson's second. He made the second six string. Ken
Mm.
Smith was there. Fodera, who makes my basses, they were
Mm-hmm.
looking for Ken Smith, so they knew all about the Anthony Jackson because Vinny Fodera helped build it.
Yeah.
So we actually were able to see that bass. So then the guy who makes the Limbic was there. Tobias was on the West Coast making six-string basses or five strings for people, and so it was a great educational thing. Oh, Thundercat was on the call with us.
Mm-hmm.
It was really amazing. So every week, it's different. We had a lot of the musicians that work with Prince for one of the webinars.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
incredible,
we
man.
had a
I'm
bunch
so
of
glad you guys are doing that. I'm so
Brown
glad you
Mark.
guys are doing it.
Yeah, Brown Mark and Cat Dyson was on there, and
Yeah.
Paul Peterson, bunch of people. It was really cool.
Nice.
So that was fun. So every week, so yeah, people just need to watch because it's educational, it's entertaining, and just fun, and it's good for the whole family.
Yeah. Yeah. Such a good thing you guys are doing. Victor, I wanted to ask you about SMV. You, Marcus, and Stanley. Great concept, and I couldn't think of any better three people who've made such an impact on the instrument. Of course, in the 70s, the two primary guys, I mean, Anthony Jackson, you can mention Alphonso Johnson too, but Jocko and Stanley. And then I think from there, Stanley hands the baton to Marcus, mid 80s, 90s, and mid 90s, 2000, it's Victor Wooten. What was the concept behind that? How did you guys bring that together? Because it's just it's huge. I mean, everybody talks about it. Like, man, have you seen those shows with those three guys? It's
Yeah.
incredible. Tell us about that.
Yeah. For me, it's huger than it appears. I think it's something that history will look back on.
Most definitely.
Whoa, whoa. And I'm just thankful and honored to have been a part.
Yeah.
But it was something that had been being brewing underneath the surface for quite a few years. We would see each other at the NAMM show, the big music convention
Mm-hmm.
in January in Anaheim, California. And if I saw Marcus, what's up, man? Man, we got to do something one of these. We got to do something, Or if I saw Stanley, yo, dude, what's up? We got to. And I'm the young guy. Stanley's the man, Marcus is the next man, and I'm just this kind of young guy coming up. But what really solidified it is Bass Player Magazine, at whatever year it was, gave Stanley Clarke a Lifetime Achievement Award. And someone came up with the idea of having Marcus and me give the award to Stanley.
Mm.
So since all three of us are there, of course we're going to play.
Right.
So we played School Days. And so during the
Yeah.
exactly. So during the day, we do a sound check, and without talking, Stanley just kicks it off. Marcus takes the bottom. I find a spot in the middle. Then Stanley goes low. Marcus goes high. And it's like, whoa, this is working. So this is funny now. So for the Lifetime Achievement Award, they interview Stanley. Months later, the interview comes out. I'm reading the magazine. I'm reading this article, and they're talking about the show. And Stanley's like, "Yeah, and we played together, and now we know, and yeah, we played, and now we're going to record now, and we're working on a tour, and I'm reading this like, I'm, so I called Stanley up on it. I'm like, "You serious? We're going to do it? Yeah, we got to do this." I'm like, yeah. So it finally started getting put together. So it was the magazine. That whole event that really made us realize, okay, we got to quit talking about this and make it happen.
Amazing. One of the things, Victor, I love your sound. I mean, just your technique is flawless. I mean, you just do things on the bass. It's almost like when Jocko hit the scene and he came out with that debut recording in 1976, blew everybody's mind. I talked to Marcus about it years ago, and he says bass players were like, what is he doing? When they heard Portrait of Tracy, like, it sounds like two basses. And I feel like you're like that too. You've just come along in the last 20 years and have just taken the bass to a new level. And I love your playing, man. It's just flawless, your technique. I wanted to ask you something interesting. And I know that you have this ritual every year on your birthday, you and your buddy. You guys still doing those backflips?
No. Well, my buddy and I, we can still do it.
You can still do those backflips? Okay.
We can still do it, but we told us when we reach 50, we're going to allow ourselves to stop doing a back handspring. So we are 6 days apart, my friend. His name is James Pagella. I call him Paque because that's his childhood nickname.
Yeah.
We grew up together. And so we don't do it every year. And I allowed myself to stop having to do it, to take the pressure off. But
right.
You know what? I might still do it. My birthday's coming up on the 11th of September.
Oh, I know.
So I still like to be young and all of that. So who knows what'll happen? And my kids are into gymnastics anyway. I got one in college doing gymnastics in Michigan. So I might have to show him that Daddy still got it a little bit. So who knows?
It's incredible. I saw you do it, man, flawlessly. I was watching the video that you made on YouTube, and I'm like, Victor's not really going to do this. And you did it, and you didn't mess up either. I was like, man,
you better.
That's pretty. I said, that's pretty impressive, You
can't. That's the thing. If you're going to do it, you better do it right.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you, Victor, when you're home just chilling out, relaxing, man, what type of music do you listen to? Or is there any particular artists, not just a bass player, but is there any type of maybe artist or group that you're listening to and checking out and saying, they have a lot of potential. I'm going to keep my eye on them.
There definitely are some, but and a lot of the times people turn me on to them. Hey, check this group out. Have you heard this player, this, Mono Neon, this young new bass player? Well, he's not so new anymore, but it's like, okay, well, who's he playing with? And find out he's playing with this guy. He's even working with Prince, But my newest bass player is about 8 years old, and he lives in one of them Eastern European countries. His name is Aaron. I forget it. Aaron Hodek. If you look him up on Instagram, Aaron, just one Aron, I think. Aaron the bassist.
Okay.
Ooh, this kid is funky, not flashy, which is perfect. Grooving like an old man.
Yeah.
Hard. And you're like, what do they know about this kind of funky stuff in wherever they are? I forget where they are, Croatia or someplace where they're not supposed to know anything about funk. This kid's unbelievable. So I hear about these people and I seek them out. But for the most part, man, when I'm home, because it used to be that I'm home so infrequently, really one of the last things I want to do is listen to music.
I gotcha.
It's mainly because I'm playing it every night. So the reason I was late here with you, I'm sitting on the porch, man, looking at the birds, listening to the birds, because we just had a storm.
Yeah.
Literally had tornado warnings and everything. But then once it clears, the birds are active, right? It clears up, and I got bird feeders all around the house. So the birds are flying. And my brother-in-law is on the porch. My wife, we still won't let anybody in our house yet.
I don't blame you, man.
We got a big screened in front porch. So yeah, you come sit on the porch and we're just looking at the birds. To me, that's the most beautiful music
Oh,
ever.
yeah. Yeah.
Most natural sounds. And the wind blowing through the trees. We live literally in the woods and the rain is still dripping off the trees. So I give myself a break most of the time when I'm not touring or when I'm off the stage. Like Dennis Chambers, though, totally the opposite.
Yeah.
When we tour together, if we're off the stage, he's either got headphones on, listening to something in his phone, or if we're in the bus, he's in the back of the bus. He owns the back lounge, and on the TV, he's looking at either some old Billy Cobb,
Yeah.
Vishnu or Lenny, whatever.
Mhm.
Always absorbing. And for me, I go the opposite way. I
Yeah.
want to do something else. But that's just me. If I am listening to music, um, it's either going back to all those guys you mentioned, Stanley Jocko, Bootsy,
Yeah.
Earth, Wind and Fire,
Oh, yeah.
Jamerson, Anthony Jackson, Willie Weeks, it's
Oh,
usually
yeah.
going back or old funk school R&B that I grew up on, or it's going to be usually a lot of times some type of like jazz or jazz fusion,
Hmm.
yeah, stuff like that.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I wanted to ask you one last question. What
Yeah.
is next musically for Victor Wooten? Maybe after this COVID-19 settles down, hopefully this year, next year. What are some of the things that are in the works, or some things that you're working on? Like, you know what,
Yeah.
I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that next.
Yeah. Well, I finished writing a concerto for electric bass and orchestra.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that I'll be performing with the Chicago Sinfonietta,
Oh,
which is a big orchestra in out of Chicago.
man.
So those parts are getting written out, and that's fun. I actually had Vinny Fodera and Joey build a bass that I can bow. So it's a 5-string fretless with a curved fingerboard, and I bow down this way, so I can get cello
Oh, wow.
sounds or even low bass sounds, and then play with my fingers at the same time. So I use that a lot, and I wrote parts for that for the orchestra. So that's fun. I also wrote a second book. I wrote a book that came out in 2008 called The Music Lesson,
Mm,
a spiritual search for growth through music. And again, it was a way of putting my mom and dad's and my brother's life lessons about life and music into
hmm.
a story. So it's kind of an instruction book, but in story form
Yeah.
that I call fiction. That way, the lessons can be there, but you don't have to take them too seriously. It's like watching Star Wars or something. If you really pay attention to what Yoda and all that they're saying, it's good
Mm,
stuff.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
can change, may the force be with you. Just change force to whatever you want. And it's powerful stuff. But because it's a fiction movie, we just watch it. We don't argue over whether Yoda's real or not. So I did a story that way and it took off. It really did well. 5 or 6 languages now, I think.
Hmm.
Uh, Universities, colleges like Berkeley, and Stanford, or and even theological colleges are making
Hmm.
people read it. So it's really amazing. So I just did a sequel to that called The Spirit of Music.
Mm.
Come out, I think it's February 2nd. And
That's incredible. Wow.
but the musical part of that is I'm working on the audio version of that.
Mm.
I did a fun audio version of my first book where all the characters are read by different people,
Yeah.
and I scored it with a lot of music. And so I'm just starting the audio recording of the next book so that when the book comes out, you'll be able to get the audio or the written version.
Can't wait to hear it. I was just going to say real quick, speaking of writing, composing, one of the things that I love about you, Stanley and Marcus, and there's a lot of great bass players. A lot of them can't compose on the level that you guys can. Even if you guys weren't bass players,
Mm-hmm.
you guys could be writers, and your stuff is beautiful. That was one of the things that I said to Felix Pastorius about his dad, Jocko. I said, there's a lot of guys, and Stanley even said this too. He said, there's guys out there now that have way more technique, more than Jocko and I, but how many of them can compose like us?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. It's
and
very true. Very true. And I learned a lot from Stanley and
yeah,
Marcus. Literally, when I'm on the road, they're working on stuff. And I can literally remember, you know, Marcus was, man, I got a call today. I gotta turn in some parts for what's the show he's doing? Everybody Hates Chris. You know, they need some parts, you know, but I got them on in the computer so I can. I'm like, can I come watch? You mind? Come on, man, come on. So I'm sitting
Yeah.
over his shoulder watching how he does it. Stanley scoring, you know, so I'm learning how they do it, and then I'm asking questions too.
Mm-hmm.
And
Hmm.
Stanley's letting me know, no, you can do it. He said the hardest part is just dealing with the people that you got to deal with.
Yeah.
You know, because a lot of times you're dealing with non-musicians telling you about your music,
Right.
but they're paying you, so you gotta, you know. So, but the thing with my heroes, like you mentioned, Stanley, Marcus, Jocko, and even Jamerson, even though I never met them, you can hear their music and you know they can think musically, not just basically, meaning from a bass standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
A good bass player doesn't mean that they're always thinking beyond the bass. And that was the one thing that made it work the first time Stanley Marcus and I played together. If
Mm-hmm.
we only thought as bass players, we'd all try to stay down low. But thinking as musicians that
Mm-hmm.
play the bass,
Right.
right? If the bass was already covered by Marcus, no need for me to go down here, right? Let me look up here. Oh, Stanley's up here. I need to go here, right? I need to become the woodwind, the middle. I need to come to French horn or whatever. He's already got the high violin and the, you know, and then we would just do this. Yeah, you know, and we do it when we talk to people right away. If somebody's talking, I listen. I'm not going to repeat everything you said because you already said, you know, we know how to do it. But a lot of times, the way we're taught and the way we're taught to think of the instrument, we
Mm.
only think one way. But my heroes have busted out of that cliche way of thinking. And so, you know, I'm learning from the best.
You definitely are. And I saw the little video you guys did, you and Marcus, about a couple months ago where he called you up. It's like a little Zoom thing. And you were trying to get straight, you know, and he's like playing, you know, Detroit and his little bass riffs and stuff. That was cool, man. I really enjoyed seeing you two together. And he's got a wonderful spirit about him. I mean, like I said, you guys have done so much incredible music, and I love all of you guys. And I want to thank you, man, for being on the show today. It's been an honor and a pleasure just to share this space with you. Hold on, I'm about to close out the show.
All right, man.
Well, you've heard it from the great Victor Wooten. And as the saying goes, if the music grooves and makes you move, it must be jazz. I'm Preston Williams with Jazz Talk signing off. Peace.